There's this myth that the rugged individualist should be the idol of our age, that a pair of bootstraps and self-determination are all a person needs. But there's another way to view the world. As John Donne said, no man is an island, and I believe we're meant to be connected. This series is my attempt to showcase the people I know and love who are building communities with creativity and passion. People from around the country who are working on building a stronger bond between people. I want to show that we don't arrive at the beloved community through grand actions or sweeping legislation, but through the daily commitment to positive action by the people around us. Not a lot of people have a song written about them. Sure, there are a lot of lovelorn laments and celebratory odes to mononym Americans, but regular people don't usually find themselves the subject of a song. Jill Knapp is not like most people. I Love Jill Knapp was written by Joe Trainor, lead singer and keyboard legend of the Joe Trainor Trio. It's full of inside jokes meant for an audience familiar with Jill, but there's more to the song than being a silly sing-along. It's about a fierce friend who cares deeply for those in her life, and I know how fortunate I am to know her. I first met Jill through my brother James. He was working crew for Little Shop of Horrors, a production put on by the City Theater Company, as a high school freshman. Jill drove him home after evening rehearsals, and they became friends. We found out that Jill booked local musicians for monthly gigs that would give them quiet space and attentive audiences. Knappuccino's is where I discovered Tommy Murray, a man whose only record is a 7-song EP that is still one of the most important albums I own. I saw young, independent performers and felt encouraged. Sure, I knew that I wasn't as talented as those musicians, but they were proof that local, independent musicians could move me as much as stadium acts. After more than 2 years of performances, Jill decided to close down Knappuccino's. I was there that night when Industrial Jazz Group played the final notes in a place that was a musical oasis for many. Jill went on to be a part of other large-scale musical theater performances. She worked with Joe Trainor in a production of Pink Floyd's The Wall, as well as singing in a night of Billy Joel. She now is one half of Hot Breakfast, the first state's premier acoustic dork-rock duo, and continues to rock the Mid-Atlantic. Growing up, I didn't know a lot of cool adults, people that were free and exciting, but also did really big things. Jill Knapp's artistic achievements and strong friendships have given me something to aspire to.
I guess going to church when I was, my mom, Catholic woman, took my brother and me to church, and I remember listening to the choir and being really into it. And I would come home from church, and my parents didn't have a piano, they had an organ, because all cool kids play the organ. And no one says get a date, like come to an organ concert. Yeah. Actually, that's filthy. Anyway, so I'd come home from church, and then I would just play what I heard, and my parents couldn't figure out how I was doing that because I didn't have any music or anything. I just kind of figured it out. I don't know, it just was really natural to me. And just all through grammar school and middle school, I was just kind of a musical kid, I guess. Yeah. And I wanted to be in band because in 7th grade, I had a crush on this guy, Jim, who played alto sax, and I really wanted to sit by Jim. So I picked up alto sax in 7th grade so I could sit by Jim. I sat next to Jim, and he found me terribly annoying, so that backfired. And then in high school, my high school was just a public school in northern New Jersey, but we had a really great music department, really strong, and our marching band was kind of, we won all sorts of state competitions and things. We marched in the Macy's Day Parade, we marched and played at Giant Stadium, so I mean, we were a really good marching band. And the choir was also really good too. And So yeah, the band and choir kids kind of hung out together because we were just sort of the music folks who just sort of hung out in the back of this one building that was kind of the music building.
Okay.
And yeah, there was just a really great group, and there was not a whole lot of overlap between the choir kids and the band kids, but I was one of them who did both.
Yeah.
But there weren't too many of those. And then there was even this theater side as well, where the band and choir kids would get to mix more because some of the band kids would be in the pit band, or the choir kids would then be on the stage a little bit more, or whatever. So those communities were really important to just kind of understanding who I was and how my talents helped me kind of fit in with other people, and it was important to who I am. I'm very lucky. I had a really good high school experience, and those band and choir, and even like being an all-state choir, an all-eastern choir, kind of like region sort of select choirs that took kids from other schools and put them together who were really good singers. That was just a really wonderful, again, community building experience. Just because when you're in a choir in high school, you see these people every day, you're singing with them every day, and you kind of get the feel for who does what well, you kind of plug in a certain way. But when you're in these other groups with people who have similar training than you do, and they have similar skill level than you do, but you've never, this sounds weird, but like you've never kind of plugged in with them before, you're in a new group with them, that's really an exciting and interesting experience too. So whether it's singing with a big choir or a small choir, even like a one-on-a-part vocal choir, vocal ensemble, which I love, it's just, it's a neat way to connect with people. And even today, I sometimes will sing with other choral singers. And even if they're people who I've never sung with before and don't even have necessarily a friendship with yet, it's neat to just kind of like sit down next to them, and then we're all doing the same thing. Like we have sheet music in front of us, and I know that I'm singing alto too, and I know that this chick over here, she's singing soprano too, and we know how our parts fit together, and then you're kind of listening to this guy over here, and even though you don't have a friendship relationship, you have this, almost in a way, like a more intimate relationship, because you have to plug in to you have to plug into them, So even though I don't know even what their name is, but I know kind of how they approach things musically, and that's a really kind of cool connection to have with somebody. Because there's something about making music solo, but then there's something else making music as a group, whether it's in a choir or in a band, where you do really have to sort of plug into this. Sounds kind of weird, but you kind of have to plug into this kind of Borg hive mind, and you have to get on the same wavelength as everybody, because if everybody's playing their own thing at the same time, even though you may be playing the same piece of music, everybody has to be doing it all at the same time, and it's this very communal thing. And even being in marching band, it was the same thing, where everybody has to agree to be their one little piece of the puzzle to kind of make this much bigger picture. So anyway, those are music communities that were always really important to me, is choral stuff and band stuff. But it seemed like that whatever instrument I was playing at the time in band was always because I wanted to sit near some cute boy who would not give me the time of day, even 1%. So. Yeah. And speaking of community of musicians, in Delaware, there's a large group of musicians that we jokingly call the Collective. Yeah. And they're headed up by this guy, Trainor. Joe is kind of a mover and shaker in the Wilmington music scene, which is a really great music scene. And Joe just has this collective of musicians that he knows. And whenever he has a project that he wants to do, he just calls the right people, and then we all get together and we throw ourselves at this thing for a month or so, and then we put on this big performance, and then we're done. And then every once in a while we'll resurrect it, we'll do it, a couple of years later, we'll just get everybody back together again, work on it, and then disappear again. Yeah. But that's a really exciting thing, just to kind of know that I'm in somebody's Rolodex for that, that there's, I need a guitar player. Okay, well, which one of these 5 do you want to choose from? Oh, well, this guy plays this style really well, so we'll get him for that. Well, this guy, he's really great for this one thing, but that's kind of not what we're looking for, so we'll use him the next time. Yeah. So it's neat to kind of have this community of musicians that, again, like when you hang out, you have these performance experiences that you've shared in the past. I love it. Yeah. I love having that community of musicians to pull from. Yeah. So I did a play in Wilmington. I did Jesus Christ Superstar at the Wilmington Drama League. And it's incredible that one show, that so many of my really good friends have come out of just that one experience. Yeah. And so I did Jesus Christ Superstar, and that's where I met Joe, that's where I met Matt Casarino, that's where I met Joe Testa, who's a guitar player, Kevin Nimi, who plays bass, Steve Weatherman, who's a choir director, teacher guy in town, and he's just amazing. So anyway, that experience is where I met Joe, and then at one of the cast parties for Jesus Christ Resurrects, we had a really huge cast. Mm-hmm. We decided instead of going to somebody's house and having a cast party that we would have a cabaret at the theater. So once the audience left, we ordered some pizzas and kept the bar open, and then we just kind of had an open mic. And the thing that was neat about that is that people who sang in the chorus of this production, we as leads didn't really get a chance to hear what they could do. So this gave them a chance to get up and sing, and it was just really cool to hear what they could do. It was just awesome. Yeah. So we did this kind of cabaret night, we called it, and that's the first time that I played with Matt Casarino, which now has blossomed into this amazing thing called Hot Breakfast, which I love more than anything else in the world. And Joe was there as well, and then there was this guy, Brian Turner, who also played, and again, like everybody in the chorus played. And coming out of that, this guy, like I mentioned, Brian Turner, he just played something that he wrote. And I said, wow, you're really good. Where do you play? And he said, I don't. I said, what do you mean you don't? And he said, I don't have a place to play. Like, I play originals, and there's kind of no place in Wilmington to play originals. And, like every time you get a bar gig, you have to play Brown Eyed Girl, or, you have to play Margaritaville or something. And because that isn't what I do. And if I do find a gig where I can play my solo stuff, or my originals, nobody's paying attention. They're all playing quarters in the back, or whatever they're doing. Because, it's hard to connect with people. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, that's crap. So I said, you're really good, and people should hear what you do. Mm-hmm. So it just took a couple months to figure it out, but I rented some space, and once a month I had what it was kind of like a listening room / coffeehouse, and for lack of a better name, we called it Knappuccinos, because my last name's Knapp. It's kind of a dorky name and stuff. Yeah. And there we had a chance to let a lot of people who didn't have a venue to play, give them an opportunity to play in front of people who would be quiet and attentive, and you could even have a little talk back after the songs or after the person's performance and say, hey, well, what do you mean by that song? Or these lyrics were really cool, or hey, I like the way that you did this thing. And it was neat to give some people their start that way. Mm-hmm. And it was neat to have more established people just get to play for an appreciative audience. And we just wanted to keep it cheap and fun, so it was just $5 to get in, and that just basically paid for the rental of the space. Mm-hmm. And if there was any money left over, we'd just go out for beers afterwards, or I'd divvy the money up among the performers, and that was kind of it. But that coffeehouse thing ran for about a little more than 2 years, and it was so much fun, and I miss it sometimes, and other times I'm happy I don't have to do it anymore. But there were a lot of people who got to try out new material there too. So Joe Trainor got to try out tons of new material there. And it's just neat to hear that there's material that he was kind of working on back in 2003, 2004, 2005. And now those songs are songs that he does with his big band now, or his full band now. Yeah. So it's just sort of neat to hear the progression of these songs from a little solo piano thing to this, big rock band thing that he has now. It's cool. It's cool. Yeah. Yeah. I feel really lucky to have had that. The thing that I just love about that too is Matt and I play open mics every once in a while with Hot Breakfast, and there are some open mics where there's one in Philadelphia that we've played at a couple times, and it's competition. Mm. And it's sort of a weird thing to just go there, because to me open mics are a place to either try something out new in front of people and just kind of get the feedback, or to have a chance to play something in front of brand new people, and just, even if it's a song that you're comfortable with and you've been playing for a million years, just to sort of see, can I win over a brand new crowd that doesn't have my friends in it? Yeah. So that's kind of a good thing. There's some open mic nights that kind of have this feeling of, when you're performing, everybody else in the audience, they don't care about you because they're too worried about them when they're going up next. So they're not really paying attention to who's up. They're more looking at the clock and wondering when they're going to get up and what are they going to play, and they're a little nervous and they're talking to friends, or, so there's this kind of chatter going on in the area that's hard to, again, like make a musical statement and really connect with people. And to me, that's why you make music, right? Because you want to express a thought or a feeling or emotion that you can't accomplish with just words. You have to put music behind it in order to really make that point. But if people are talking, again, like doing whatever, then you're not going to make that connection. Yeah. But at Knappuccino's, that's one thing that I really wanted, and I would always kick off every night saying, this is a listening room. If you want to talk, go outside. It's totally fine. If you want to talk, just don't do it in here. If you want to, play with your phones, that's fine. Don't do it in here. Do it someplace else. And this is quiet time. So again, even if you want to whisper to your neighbor about how awesome this guy is, wait until the applause. This is for listening. So put your ADD aside and focus. Which is not easy, and I kind of wonder if that sort of thing would be doable now in 2013, because in 2003 we weren't quite so phone. Yeah. We weren't quite there yet. I mean, some of us were, but now everybody has a smartphone, and people can't see what's right in front of them because there's a glowing rectangle right here, and I fall into that too. Yeah. I'm kind of curious if something like Knappuccino's could survive, or if the vibe would be the same. Now that everybody has a phone that they'd be digging around with. While somebody's spilling their guts out on the stage. I don't know. But it was in September of last year. I went to go see Amanda Palmer. Okay. And she was playing at the TLA. I think it was the TLA. And so we had really good seats, and she's an amazing performer, and everybody has some kind of opinion on Amanda Palmer, but either way, we just wanted to see what it was all about, because I'd followed her on Twitter for a million years, and I think she's a really interesting and compelling person, and I really just wanted to see what her live show was all about. It was the first time I'd ever seen her. And so I was there, and from the moment she took the stage, it never occurred to me to mess with my phone. And that speaks volumes to me, because I admit that, I am a sucker for a glowing rectangle. I really am. But when she took the stage, I was just riveted. And I'm not going to say that every song was the greatest song in the entire world. I think she's a very gifted songwriter and a wonderful performer. But even if the song didn't necessarily grab me or move me, her performance did. And she was balls out the entire time. And that is something that I respect so much, because there's so many performers who just kind of phone it in. Yeah. And there are some performers who can walk out on stage and they can fill the room, and this sounds kind of weird, but they can fill the room with this, they can fill the room with this, without even talking. They can make you feel their presence in the room. And she does that. She walks out on stage and the room is full of her before she even opens her mouth. And that blows my mind, before she even sings. And then once she opens her mouth, then you're blown away. Yeah. But it never crossed my mind to mess with my phone during that event. But then as soon as it was over, it started. Yeah. But that was cool. Yeah. And then we were kind of sitting up in the balcony so we could see everybody else down on the floor. And there was minimal phone screwing. I mean, people were taking pictures and stuff, but there was minimal texting. Yeah. And that made me happy. Yeah. So as a performer, for me, I kind of gauge how well we're doing with how many people are dicking around on Facebook while we're playing. Yeah. I mean, because it's one thing to, if you're seeing a band and you like, and you're I'll just bring up their page, hit like, and then I'll get back to watching them. Yeah. But then it's another thing to be hey, there's a band on stage right now, and you just kind of see people who are doing this. Yeah. Oh, come on. So I met Andrew in high school, and again, he was a friend of my brother's. So my brother's 2 years older than me, so was Andrew. And he was just this guy, and he was just one of my brother's friends. I didn't really know him, he was just somebody who hung out with my brother. And his senior year of high school, he wrote this rock opera for his independent study project. So in my high school, you could take the last 2 marking periods off, the last half of the year off, if you were selected, and you could do a project, an independent study project, and then you had to present it at the end of the year. So Andrew wrote a rock opera, and it's one of those things that he wrote when he was 17, but I'll be damned. I mean, it's fantastic. And even now when you listen to it, it's yes, these are high school kids performing it, but the songs still hold up. Yeah. And he hates the fact that the songs still hold up. He's the thing I wrote when I was 17, I'm writing these incredible, pieces of avant-garde jazz now, but people just still want the 3-chord chunker about a breakup that I wrote when I was 17. Yeah. Which is hilarious, but, common experience. So anywho, I was in this rock opera with, Durkin cast me in this rock opera, and again, that was when we realized that we really had this great click. And I was recording with him, about a year and a half prior to that too in the studio, but he recruited me to be in this rock opera. And that's where a whole bunch of us all just kind of learned about the genius that is Andrew. And I don't use that word lightly. He really is a freak of nature, And he went to Berkeley College of Music for a semester, maybe a year, and hated it. and because he felt there that everybody was just trying to out-deep each other, and he's like, I don't have time for that. He goes, I want to write, I want to compose, I don't want to have to be playing this, who has, drippier mascara right now, like I don't want to deal with that. So he left Berkeley and moved back to Jersey, which is where I still was because I was going to college at the time, and we started a couple bands, and those bands again were those were kind of my band formative years. Because I was in punk bands and stuff in high school, but this was really, because I was also going to school for music, so it really let me apply in a way that was interesting to me, my musical training, my vocal training, in a way that was still kind of pop accessible and not the opera thing that they were trying to teach us at school, which I was not having any of. So, so Durkin and I, we were in a band called Brooklyn Ferry first, and so after Brooklyn Ferry dissolved, we started another band called the Evelyn Situation. And the Evelyn Situation was around for about 3 years and got pretty popular, just in New Jersey. I mean, that's as far as we did. I mean, we played a couple shows in Pennsylvania or Lehigh Valley or whatever, but considering what we were, there were 3 female singers and we sang really tight harmony. And then we had 2 guitarists and a keyboard player. So there was no bass, no drums.
Oh, wow.
And it's very trebly, because women's voices are higher too. But it really worked. It was just this really cool groove. We had this really neat vibe. And so the Evelyn Situation, we recorded, an EP, and then we have a whole bunch of songs that we recorded but never had enough money to finish mixing. And so now I still have some of those tapes. I go back and I listen to them and I'm like, oh, these songs are so good. I just wish that we could finish them. But the masters are lost, and so there's kind of no way to do that, but someday.
Yeah.
But so that was a really important band, and then that band broke up about the time that I moved from Jersey to Arizona, which was, I guess, 95. And Durkin moved to California at that time in 95. So he was in California, I was in Arizona, so we thought, well, we're just, we're like a 6-hour drive from each other, because he was in LA, I was outside of Phoenix. So we still collaborated. So he would drive out to Phoenix, or I would fly out to LA, and then we would collaborate still. So even though it wasn't a band situation, because it's kind of hard to practice consistently to kind of have a band, we did this couple kind of experimental studio projects, which was really fun. But again, he would write all the music, and he had a very clear idea of what he wanted when he brought the songs to me. And then he would give them to me, teach them to me, and then I would kind of interpret them in my kind of Jillish way, but still being very true to what his original idea was. And so we released a CD under the band name Jay's Booming Hat. And that CD name was Gruel. And it's half experimental and half kind of silly songs about nose picking, and truthfully there's a song in there called Nose Picking. It's fantastic. So again, they're just kind of little funny, kind of quirky songs. It kind of has like a Talking Headsy feel, and anyway, it's a treat. I think it's kind of out there, but it's great. So we did this experimental band thing for a while, and then to make extra money on the side, Durkin was arranging songs for some other jazz bands, and he was playing in jazz bands because he was like really into jazz and ragtime. So he started up a band, and I think it was just a quintet when they first started, and they ultimately called themselves the Industrial Jazz Group. I think they were the industry standard at first, but there was a couple other bands with that name, so they went with the Industrial Jazz Group. So they started out as a quintet, which I had nothing to do with, and then they moved to a septet, so 7 people, which I had nothing to do with. And then when they moved to a dectet, I guess, a 10-tet, Durkin resurrected some of the old songs that he and I sang together back in the 90s. And so he called me up and he's like, hey, do you want to fly to LA and sing this gig with the Industrial Jazz Group? Because you're not going to sing on every song, we're just going to kind of call you up out of the audience, and you can sing 2 songs and you sit back down. I'm like, sure. So they played a lot in California, so I was flying out to California a lot. This is when I finally moved back to the East Coast, so I was flying back and forth between Delaware and LA a lot to sing with them. And it was just a riot. And we would dress up in these ridiculous costumes. I had like this bee costume and a dinosaur costume, because the music was really fun, but I think a lot of people get scared of jazz because if people I think like jazz just kind of sounds scary because they think like, oh, I've never been to a jazz concert, and I heard a rumor that you're supposed to clap after all the solos, but I don't know if I'm supposed to do that or not. But I know if I go to a classical concert, you don't clap between movements. Well, then when do I clap? And what do I do? And do I sit there? Can I talk? And like I think people are afraid of it a little bit. And also, I think when people think of jazz, they think of free jazz. That's and that makes some people uncomfortable. And they're like, I don't want to listen to for 3 hours. Some people do, some people don't. So I think the idea of jazz for your average Joe was like a little scary, off-putting, or confusing. So, but Durkin wrote these very funny songs. They almost sounded like Bugs Bunny soundtracks. They were really fun. But we would take the stage, called the Industrial Jazz Group, and the audiences would be sitting there because they wouldn't really know what to do. And they would hear these very funny songs and these funny sounds, but they didn't know if they were allowed to laugh because I've never laughed at a jazz concert before, and they just didn't really know what to do with themselves. So I said to Durkin, I was like, why don't we dress up just wear funny hats, or just do something that kind of shows them, if a dinosaur walks on stage and a guy with a sombrero walks on stage, maybe they know then visually they'll get the cue that they're in for something silly, or in for something that's going to be played really well, but yes, you're allowed to laugh. So we really went with that, and so the band had this costumey thing for a while, and the last tour that I played with them was probably 2009, and it had evolved or devolved, depending on how you look at it, where I had this bee outfit, and then I had this dinosaur outfit, but the best guy was this guy, Mike Richardson, who plays trombone, and he's amazing. And he would take the stage, and he'd be wearing khakis, and a kind of a polo shirt, and a cardigan, very Mr. Rogers. And the first song that we played would always have this really long intro, where the trombones didn't play anything. So the band would come out, and people would be dressed however we would be dressed, and then there's Mike Richardson dressed just very conservatively. And over the course of this intro of this song, Mike would slowly, and not seductively at all, but would slowly disrobe until he's down to wearing just the sequined thong. So here's you're at a jazz concert, and here's this trombone player wearing this sequined thong, and we're playing really good music, and there's this guy, and you're just what am I looking at? And it was great because we just wanted to be really surreal and just really Burr. And so that group was so by the time we were retiring in 2009, that was a 17-piece band, and it was just a riot, just to be making nutty music that was also really hard music to play, really challenging. Crazy mixed time signatures and in these crazy keys with these 6 solos. These players were all. I was definitely the weakest musician out of the entire group, and I'm honored to say that. But to be playing with guys who were so talented, but are still totally happy to be wearing a thong. It's great. To be kind of plugged in with these guys. So it's nice to know that I kind of have this posse of musicians that live in California that, again, if I'm ever in California, I can just call those guys and be like, hey, thong guy, what are you up to? It's just neat to have that to have that community as well. But so Durkin and I have had this very long musical relationship that started in high school. And just in the last year or two, the Industrial Jazz Group, he took a break from them because he had some other stuff going on, and he wanted to work with a smaller ensemble up in Portland, which is where he is now. So there was kind of no room for, vocalists, totally fine. So I had more time in my schedule to kind of free up to play with Hot Breakfast and to kind of throw myself at that. And so the timing of just those two bands kind of evolving or devolving or ramping up and winding down worked out really well. So I'm thrilled to be able to be, focusing on Hot Breakfast. But so we just released our first full-length CD. It's called 39 Summers with Hot Breakfast. And so we had our CD release party. It was really great. And then I was really excited to send a copy of this CD to Andrew, because we always have traded mixtapes. Since we were in high school, we've always traded mixtapes. And so I really wanted him to have this CD because his opinion is really important to me. And he really helped shape who I am as a musician. And even though Andrew was not involved in Hot Breakfast at all, his influence is still there just because he shaped who I am as a singer and as a musician. So I sent him the CD, and he kind of has a really good reputation online as being a music blogger and a critical thinker about music. He has a book coming out about just deep musician thoughts. And people go to his website to kind of read kind of scholarly music reviews of pop songs or jazz records and things. It's really neat. He's a brilliant guy. So I sent him the CD, and I was a little nervous about it too, because it's, Hot Breakfast is a little silly, and it's, it's popish, and, it's kind of rockin' too, but it kind of has like, we're an acoustic duo, but we're convinced we're kind of a metal band. So I wasn't really sure what he was going to think of it. But at the same time, Andrew and I come from similar musical backgrounds where we were kind of born and raised on Billy Joel and the Beatles, so we have that same rooted, kind of vocabulary. So, and he said that he really loved it. So that it was kind of like getting approval in some way, and getting that email from him saying that he loved the CD was just the happiest thing ever. It just made me so excited because, he's just somebody who I look up to so much as a musician, and also just as a person and as a friend. And I know that if he didn't like it, or if he thought this stuff could be better, he would also tell me that too. So for him to say that, it just really meant the world to me. So because I also have a theater background, one thing that the Industrial Jazz Group was, again, in my opinion, that was lacking or making audiences uncomfortable is, again, like before we started wearing the costumes, I noticed that, again, audience members just weren't really sure what to make of us, and they were uncomfortable. Even though the music was good and we were playing it very well, they just kind of didn't know what to make of it. And I could kind of sense that in the audience. So I said to Durkin, we have to figure out a way to get the audience in, like to connect with them and make them feel welcome and make them feel like they're in on the joke. As opposed to, we're up here doing something funny and you don't get it. We wanted to make them feel like, hey, you're part of this. So one of the things that was my job in the Industrial Jazz Group was, I would dress up as a bee or whatever. And I remember especially when we played in the Netherlands, Dutch people, they speak English, but Dutch is their primary language, but everybody speaks music, which is great. But one of my jobs was to hold up signs. And the signs had all of the song titles on it, because Durkin didn't really like to talk to the audience. He's kind of a shy guy, and his voice is really, really deep. So even on a microphone, you can't really understand, because his voice is like unusually deep. It's beautiful. So my job was to kind of be like a boxing ring girl, and hold up these signs that had the song titles on them. But then, even if it was a song that I wasn't singing on, I would still be performing. So I would kind of dance around. And I'm not a dancer, but if the band played something funny, I would give one of these, or if I knew that something weird was coming up, I would make sure that I was snapping in time so the audience knew, hey, we're playing something weird, but it's intentional. So yes, you're hearing something that sounds screwy, but look at me, I'm comfortable with it. You can be comfortable with it too. Yes, this is called 13/8. It's weird, but it's cool. You got it? And I'd give people winks, and I'd kind of walk around in the audience, just kind of try to draw people in and make them feel that connection. And I heard from a lot of people that really helped them get comfortable with the music. And we did a similar show in Milan in 2011. And in Italy, people, I think, speak a little less English. And we weren't as dressed, like Durkin asked us, not to dress as bees, or, he wasn't gonna, so he said, wear suits, try to, kind of tone down, because he wanted to be a little classier. But I still felt like it was my job to still kind of connect with the audience a little bit more. And he was using me as a singer a lot differently. He was using me more as an instrument. So instead of me singing words, I was just singing oohs and ahs, and it was almost like I was playing a saxophone part, So it was just like another instrument in the band. But I would always kind of cheat out to the audience a little bit and smile at them or wink at them or make sure that they knew that something weird's coming up, but you're okay with it, it's cool, we're all in this together. And after the concert ended, the promoter who hired us to play, this was like in this 800-seat theater in Milan, was sold out. The guy who booked it, his name was Johnny, and he came out and he came backstage and he said, hey band, some of the audience wants to meet you. And we're like, okay. I don't know. So the stage was really high up, and the audience was kind of down here in the pit. So I just came out, and some of the band members were out, and the audience just came up, and a lot of them flooded me, and it was very strange. But I think it's because they felt a connection. And so a lot of them were handing me their programs, and they were going like this, like they wanted me to sign it. So like, okay, I'm just some idiot from Delaware. I don't know why you want my signature, but okay. So I'm signing programs, and as I'm signing them, they would look at me, and they didn't, again, because they didn't speak English and I didn't speak Italian, so they would smile, and then they would just touch my face, and they would just touch my face, and they would just do this, and I interpreted that as thank you for connecting, and it was just a really, again, like I think about that a lot, and I get a little choked up thinking about it. It was just this really human experience, where a lot of times, like, you know, if we play a jazz gig in LA, you know, in LA, people just kind of stand in the back of the room like this, you know, and they don't really know what to make of it. They're kind of too cool for it. But there's just this thing about, you know, just it's all about connection and just making people feel like they're included. And Amanda Palmer just did that so well. Is even if you don't know her music, and even if you know, however, you know, even if you don't like the way she looks or whatever, she makes you feel included. She makes you feel important. And that's why she has 50 gazillion thousand million Twitter followers, because she makes you feel like you're part of the club, and she makes you feel important. And I think that's all we want as humans, is to feel like we're part of something.
Yeah.
And there's something to that, you know. I mean, that's why you do anything. You want to feel connected. You want to feel like you're part of something bigger. You know, you don't want to feel so alone in this crazy world. Yeah. So. With Hot Breakfast, that's another thing that it's kind of my job, I think, and Matt does it also really well, but I think because I'm the singer and I don't have something to do with my hands, my job is to sing, but then also make sure that I connect with the audience. And I try really hard, depending on the size of the venue, of course, but I always try to make sure that I make eye contact, even if for a moment, with everybody in the audience at some point, and smile at them. And they always smile back. And I love that, because again, I want them to, it's one thing to hear something and like what you hear, but it's another thing to feel that you like what you hear, you know? And I really think that's why we've done so, or one of the reasons why we've done so well as a band, is because people say that they say, we love Hot Breakfast. And it's because they love the songs? Sure. But I think it's also because Matt and I make people feel appreciated, and we make them feel welcome. We make them feel like they're part of the club. And come on in, come join our, you know, nutty night. You know, we kind of make fun of ourselves on stage, you know, and, you know, we just kind of, in a self-deprecating but not too much way, you know, just, hey, you know, it's cool, you know, thanks for being here. And, you know, we want people to know that we appreciate them for choosing us to spend their Saturday night with, instead of sitting home on the couch, which admittedly is more comfortable, dicking around on Facebook, which is a lot more fun. You know, you know, it takes a lot to get people off their couch and out to a venue. So we want to make sure that they feel thanked, and that they feel good about it, and that this is a good experience, and that they might want to do it again sometime. I don't know. That's just kind of my philosophy. You know, it's all about connecting with people. Like, I don't care how good of a musician you are. If you're sitting there and you're just kind of playing this by yourself, there's a place for that, but I want to feel a connection. Maybe not everybody wants that, but that's what I want. What do you want first, Defender or Hole in Your Pants?
Oh gosh, I really do like Defender an awful lot.
All right,
it's really good.
All right, we'll do that. I'll never make that same mistake, thinking I know the way you feel. Now I guess I'm naive, maybe I assumed too much. I never did believe whoever would refuse my touch. But everything's okay, it's coming to an end. I am Defender, and I will never hurt like this again. You can't get to me, you can't see through me, you can't get to me anymore. It looks like your Juliet's asleep. She OD'd on hope and Valentine's. pretend to empathize until you burn your pain away. But dreamers only dream, believers are let down. I am defender, protector of this heart you pushed around. You can't get to me, you can't see through me, you can't get to me, not anymore. Close my eyes and keep my cool, and don't play nice. No, you're not salvation, I'm not your fool. Something has got you so inspired. Someone has put you on the prowl. So you tell me you've been hurt, but you're the one who understands. Well, I will use your shirt to wipe your bloodstains from my hands. 'Cause dreamers only dream, believers are let down. I am defender, protector of this heart you tried to drown. I will remember whenever your temptation has me weak. I won't surrender to all your charms, your sex and your mystique. You can't get to me, you can't see through me, you can't get to me, not anymore, not anymore. Ladies and gentlemen, we are Hot Breakfast. Nice. We are Delaware's premier acoustic dork rock power duo, and I would love to introduce to you right now the talented half of this band, the lovely, the spectacular Matt Casarino.
Woo!
Yeah! You both. And my name is Jill. Thanks for having us here, because we're really excited to be here.
Yeah.
Yay. So this next song that we're going to do for you addresses a social issue that plagues many people today, and we thought that we would write a song about it because that's what acoustic duos do. We're here to affect change. There's a hole in your pants, a hole in your pants. I want to be polite and look away, but I can't. Though you may have a soul made of poppies and gold, all I know is a hole in your pants. There's a hole in your pants, as spacious as France. The placement's so provocative, it can't be by chance. 'Cause the green dragonfly on the skin of your thigh draws the eye to the hole in your pants. And how dare you make me choose between proper piety and my need to be amused at your fabric absentee? And how dare you make me stare at the cloth that isn't there? You've a flair for trouser wear that's tantalizingly bare. As you pose and you prance, I'm caught in a trance, unnerved by my urge to steal one more glance. My resolve's going numb, I confess I succumb, overcome by the
Amazing.
Thank you. That's what we do.
Yeah.
That's what dork-rock is. Now you know.
Well, so, people who are super interested in Hot Breakfast, how can they find out more about you? Like, what's
They can't.
they can't?
Local library. Yeah.
The Dewey Disc.
Please go to your local
The card
library.
catalog.
Microfiche.
Yes. We have a website, hot-breakfast.com. Don't forget the dash. Or you can find us on Facebook. Don't do that. Which is facebook.com/hotbreakfastrocks. We're also on the Twitter, Hot Breakfast. We are on Reverb Nation, or you know what? You can just Google Hot Breakfast Band. That works. You'll find us. Yeah. There you have it.
I'll do it.
That'll do it. That's how you find us. We have CDs available that you can do digital downloads, or we can even mail one to your house, and we might even include a little dorky thing in the envelope with the CD. I mailed one out the other day, and I put in a picture of a chicken, just because why not? Yeah, so you can order things from us as well, and we'll mail them to you. Or you could get the digital download.
We might send you an actual chicken too.
Yes, if you're lucky. If you live close.
If they fit in the padded envelopes. Yeah, it's padded. The envelope's padded, so
Yeah,
it'll be fine.
it'll be okay.
Yeah.
So,
We throw like a burger in there with it, so it's got something to eat.
yeah.
Perfect. well, thank you so much for playing. Jill, thank you for sharing.
Thanks for
your
having us.
insight.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
Now everybody smile on the count of 3. Oh, 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 oh. There's another winner for your gallery. Oh, 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 oh. Add it to the folder labeled having fun. Oh, oh, oh.